process. Richard H. is a former Royal Military Police Close Protection officer with over 30 years' experience. He's the author of the book Close Protection. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
And now, central to his case, Prince Harry argued that his situation should have been put before RAVEC's Risk Management Board to assess the threats he and his family's security actually faced. That didn't happen. Were you surprised with the ruling the court came up with?
I was shocked, but certainly not surprised. Sir Geoffrey Voss, the judge of the Court of Appeal, said that the Duke's grievance had not translated into a legal argument. Well, that's because the provision of protection should not be based on legal argument, but through a formalised approach to the assessment of threat and risk. But they're firmly sticking to legal process, ruling that the security decision had been a predictable and even a sensible reaction to Megxit. When Harry stepped back from being a senior royal and quit Britain. Threats against a person who has protection afforded to them due to their status within a specific family are not diminished when they leave the duties of that family. They will always remain a member of that family. Prince Harry is sixth in line to the throne. That hasn't changed. The threat and risk assessment against Harry hasn't really been mentioned whatsoever throughout the past 5 years during this process. It's all been geared around a legal approach to the situation and not about any formalised approach to the assessment of risk and threat against him.
Well, the judges said yesterday the committee had diverged from policy back in 2020 because of the complexity of his circumstances. It was deemed a sensible thing to do. But it sounds like you might agree with what sounded like a very emotive judgment of his that this has been a stitch-up.
Absolutely. I think Prince Harry has nailed it in that terminology there. It is an establishment stitch-up. It's clear that the entire process has been caught up in emotion and appears to be nothing other than spite from the royal household, where senior public figures in position of power in government and in RAVEC must see to be toe the party line. It's retributive justice for Megxit, not as any balanced, formalised approach to assessment of threats and risks to those threats.
We heard Prince Harry talking yesterday about the influence he feared the royal household had on this decision at RAVEC. How much influence do they actually have within this?
The royal household is in control here. The members of the household are part of RAVEC. They form an element of RAVEC combined with members of Parliament, senior protection command officers and so on. And of course, when you have senior members of the royal household staff influencing decision-making process, how in effect can you actually work in conflict against that? You'll be working in conflict against the crown, in effect, because the members of the royal household are speaking for the king.
So when you have Prince Harry writing to the Home Secretary saying, can you review this process, that sounds like a bit of a non-starter, would you think?
No. The decision on RAVEC is usually conducted by assessment of risk, and that assessment is through opinion, experienced opinion. Legal process isn't part of it. It's the accurate assessment of threat and risk. And we're not just discussing the armed protection here on the ground of the United Kingdom when Prince Harry visits. We are talking a whole host of security measures that work in the background.
Yeah,
a whole host of diverse intelligence.
Richard H., a former military and security professional, has come out strongly in defense of Prince Harry and, indirectly, Meghan Markle, as the controversy over their personal security in the UK intensifies. Following a court ruling that denied Harry the right to pay for police protection while in Britain, H. described himself as shocked, but certainly not surprised. His reaction speaks to a larger issue that goes far beyond royal protocol or legal arguments. The judge in this case ruled that Prince Harry's concerns did not translate into a valid legal claim, but H. believes that the problem is not about legal technicalities, it's about fundamental principles of security and fairness. He argues that protection for high-profile individuals shouldn't be decided through narrow legal channels, but through a well-structured and formalized threat assessment process. It's not just about what you can prove in court, it's about what level of risk actually exists in real life. And in the case of Harry, and by extension Meghan and their children, that risk remains high. Harry isn't just a public figure. He's a royal by birth, a global name, and critically, someone who has faced real threats over the years. He served in the military. He's been outspoken on controversial issues, and both he and Meghan have been targets of relentless media attacks, conspiracy theories, and in some cases, credible threats. H is clear. The need for protection doesn't go away just because someone steps back from royal duties. As he puts it, the threats are not diminished when they leave the duties of that family. They will always remain, and that's where the injustice lies. Prince Harry is being denied protection, not because he's suddenly safe, but because he chose a different path from the one the royal family expected. Instead of assessing his risk like any other high-profile individual, H argues that the decision has been politicized. It's all been geared to a legal approach and not any formalized approach to threat and risk, he says. In his view, the entire process reeks of personal retribution, a reaction to Megxit more than a reasoned review of potential harm. When asked whether the initial 2020 decision to strip Harry of security was a setup, H didn't hesitate. Absolutely, he said. He believes the decision was caught up in emotion and nothing more than spite from the royal household. Senior government officials and members of the Ravek Committee, the body responsible for assigning royal and VIP security, are, in his words, towing the party line. This, he argues, isn't about safety or fairness, it's retribution justice. In other words, a punishment for daring to step out of line. And this brings us to a broader defense, not just of Harry, but of Meghan too. Because this entire saga didn't happen in a vacuum. Meghan has faced a level of media scrutiny and racist hostility unprecedented in modern royal history. As a woman of color, an American, and an outsider to the British establishment, she became an easy target for tabloids, politicians, and online trolls. Prince Harry didn't just walk away from royal duties for no reason. He walked away to protect his wife and his family. If anything, that decision demonstrates responsibility, not rebellion. In any other context, a man choosing his family's well-being over institutional expectations would be seen as honorable. But in Harry's case, it's been weaponized against him. And now, with security stripped away, he's being forced to choose between visiting his home country and exposing his family to risk. That's not a real choice. That's coercion by policy. Even more troubling is the influence the royal family allegedly holds in the process. H notes that members of the royal household are involved in the Ravek decision-making body. That creates a clear conflict of interest. You'll be working against the crown, he says, if you try to push back. It becomes nearly impossible to challenge a system where the very people you're asking protection from are also deciding whether you deserve it. So when Harry asks for a review of the process, it's not about entitlement, it's about fairness. It's about basic safety. And H is right to point out that Ravek is supposed to make decisions based on expert risk assessments, not legal filings. But in this case, the judge's ruling means that Harry will not receive protection as a matter of course, only when he is present at royal functions where existing security is already in place. That's not a secure arrangement, that's a workaround. And it sends a dangerous message that security is conditional on obedience. Prince Harry and Meghan made a difficult choice. They left a life of privilege, yes, but also a life of suffocating control, racism, and tabloid exploitation. They sought independence, not isolation. And what they've received in return is institutional pushback, public smearing, and now, the removal of basic safety provisions. It's time to see the situation for what it is. Not a petty family drama, but a failure of leadership. Not a security issue, but a moral one. Richard H. saw it clearly, and he's not alone. If we believe that threats should be met with protection, regardless of politics or power, then Prince Harry's case deserves better. And so does Meghan. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe and see you on the next video.